In this lesson, we're going to learn which items to check just before importing or modeling absolutely anything on your scene. Now, I'm adding this little section into the course because in some cases people use template files that are done by their offices that already have a certain unit set up, a certain material assortment within them, that have a scene setup done just to basically streamline the process. And I very often also use scenes from old projects that I just recycle. I delete the buildings and I just add in new modeling elements into it. But what I want to mention to you is that if you're working with a CAD file that has been done with a different unit size or unit scale to the one that you have in 3D Max, you can run into some issues as you import them. So you just need to be very aware of what those are. So you can check that by going to Customize and Unit Setup and just make sure that you know which units you are using so that when you import them, you have everything correlating the same way. So meters become meters and your translation doesn't get lost by using something like inches or a generic unit. If you're listening in America, you would be using feet and inches, so you just make sure that you're not importing things that are done in meters and millimeters, for example. So the next thing you can do is go down to your preferences, and here just go across a few small points that can really help you. One of them are the spinners. Make sure that you have enough decimal points. Since I'm working in meters, I need to have at least 3 decimal points behind my comma so that I can, for example, show a size such as 1 millimeter, which is going to be 0.001. So that is important that I don't have 2 decimals. Make sure that you have enough scene undo levels in place in case you make mistakes, or especially when you're doing tiny, quick actions to your file. For example, if you're smoothing or if you're manually painting or deforming objects, you need to have enough scene level undo in place just in case you do need to go back. The next thing to make sure that your auto backup is enabled. Check that you have enough files that are going to be consecutively backed up to, and that your interval is not longer than 5 or 10 minutes. So just remember that amount here is going to be the maximum time of modeling that you're going to sacrifice every time you unfortunately have some sort of error. That does inevitably happen, especially when we are rushing towards deadlines. For some reason, it's always a case that you have a few precious minutes of time to finish and everything crashes and you can't get your file back. So make sure that these amounts are very low. Some people, they like to disable it or even increase the backup interval to 20 minutes, because what happens when we have a very complex file, it takes a good couple of seconds, 10, 20, 30 seconds to save if you have, let's say, a 500 megabyte or a gig file. So this is exactly the reason why I like to have very optimized files. It not only speeds up your workflow within your scene, but it also allows your backup to happen over a very short amount of time. So try to have a file size which is really, really small, and that will then really speed things up as you're working along. So there are a couple of other settings that you can go through, but none of them are really as essential as units and backup. So you want to make sure that things are right from the get-go. Remember as well that you also have the reset function, which I've just done shortly ago, to just put everything back to its basic default position. So remember as well that you need to make sure that your rendering engine is set to what you want to be using. In our case, it's going to be V-Ray, and make sure that that is set up before you open up your material editor so that you have the option of adding a V-Ray material to objects. Otherwise, you will then have to just reset that from the beginning. So with that all out the way, we can now go and jump into our next lesson, where we will start importing our CAD files into our scene that we have over here.